Welcome to episode 259 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
This past weekend was Gen Con 2021. It was a hybrid convention this year, unlike last year, which was completely digital, and most Gen Cons, which are completely in person with some digital embellishment, but for the most part, it's an in-person convention. This year's attendance was 35,000 people in person in Indianapolis, which is about half of what the attendance was at the last in-person Gen Con. That would be 2019.
Yeah, and that is a lot of people, but I still didn't feel comfy going, even though it's just a short drive for me to get there because, Delta happened, and that's a scary thing.
Yeah. It's going to be a couple of weeks before we realize just what kind of COVID fallout there was from Gen Con. Mm-hmm. And that's not even the darkest shadow that was cast over this Gen Con, at least from Paizo point of view. Well, maybe it was, and then this other one is second to it. But yeah. Paizo attended Gen Con 2021 virtually. It ran 16 scheduled seminars and over a dozen actual play sessions, most of which...
We hosted 4 of them.
We were supposed to host 4 of them. Unfortunately, that John Compton one, due to technical difficulties, we only got about 5-minute conversation with John, and basically had to scrap the whole thing, which is too bad. It's always fun to talk to John Compton. But kind of the tone and the tenor of those seminars was definitely affected by what had happened the previous week. So last Monday, a couple of shocking staff departures, we'll call them, because there were some firings and at least one person has quit because of it. And it led to a call from the community for accountability from Paizo. And so we're going to lead off with the news story that was heading into Gen Con, and that is #Paizo Accountability.
Oh boy. So what we do know is that, like you said, there's a couple of terminations, a protest, resignation. The people, at least one of the people involved, does not want their name brought into this too loudly, so we'll refrain from doing that. And then that prompted some accusations from former Paizo employee Jessica Price, who went on a very long Twitter thread that is easy to find, that started in the morning and continued through the entire day, making several allegations against Paizo's management of various sorts, and then also was then corroborated by other ex-Paizo employees, including Katie's own Crystal Frazier, certain elements, not the entire report.
So Jessica Price has gone off on Paizo a couple of times on Twitter before, since she left the company. And so when she started this particular thread by basically saying that she was taking the gloves off, it was like, oh, the gloves were on the last few times. But she was saying that to protect her friends at Paizo from any kind of retaliation from things she would say, she has held back some details, some information, and hasn't quite named all the names that she could. But because one of the people that was fired was the last person that she felt would be retaliated against, she really felt like there was nothing keeping her from going off on, like you said, a whole day of complaints. Some were personal issues. A lot of them were directed at management, upper management, really. And she named quite a few names. The example that she started with, and the one that's gotten a lot of attention, was talking about how Paizo had not cleaned its carpets in 7 years. And some people have called this nitpicking and called it a questionable way to start. But she does even say, like, this kind of is the nutshell example of the issues with Paizo, in that the carpets had not been cleaned because the cleaning service, he was the one person that they had cleaning that office was not in physical shape to be cleaning the carpets. And so Jessica Price offered to come in on the weekend and clean it herself. In fact, she did, and Crystal said that she was one of the other people that went in, because Crystal says that she was getting effectively asthma attacks from the conditions that she had to work in. And so after 1 weekend of cleaning it, they were told the contract and the insurance says they can't clean it. So it was like, you can't clean it, you have to live in this filth, and no one is respecting the complaints about the conditions there. And it wasn't until she coordinated with a whole bunch of other employees that were being personally affected by this that anything got done. And so again, this was Jessica highlighting a perfect example of everything that every issue she had about getting anything done at the office. This was the process, and it was frustrating, and people would come down on her in the end being like, you're the one who coordinated it. And it's like, she signed her name to the email, she says, and she got the carpets cleaned and created a safer, healthier work environment. And so she doesn't see why that was treated like she was the villain in the situation.
Yeah, and this is again one of the instances that has a lot of cooperation. We're going to keep saying things like this because it's important that we have to say cooperation. This is what is said and stuff.
So,
liability
it's bugging
issues.
me the way you're pronouncing it. Corroboration.
Yes. Yeah. And that's just sort of how we have to report the news, gang.
Yeah. So Crystal Fraser corroborated it directly, like in the thread was saying like, Jessica, I will corroborate these things with you. And then other employees have said like, I don't know about some of these things, but here are the things that I can also confirm.
Right.
Liz
Also,
Courts, who was a community manager for a long time at Paizo, came from being one of the Paizo's biggest fans to being an employee there, to leaving out of frustration. She also had a long and kind of just heartbreaking tale about her encounter with the same attitude and situation.
Yeah. And for the carpet thing specifically, that was addressed in the most recent blog post. There have been several blog posts and statements coming out of Paizo and Paizo employees about all of these events surrounding this issue. And the carpet is definitely one that has been acknowledged by everyone. Also, they have said that they have hired a new company to take care of that 5 years ago.
Yes. So that is not the only thing that really brought a lot of attention from what Jessica was talking about. One of them was about salaries and just really highlighting how poorly Paizo's staff is paid.
And I have had that independently corroborated. Dozens of times from Paizo staff over the years. The sentiment that many of them feel pressured to work freelance gigs in addition to their Paizo staff because it is very expensive to live in Seattle. Very, very expensive. As somebody who is recently looking to move there and trying to find an apartment for less than, I don't know, $1,600 a month, it's kind of hard to do.
Well, and even just if you look at our interviews, like we talk to Paizo staffers every 2 weeks for years, and it always seems like the pressure is on. They've always got a deadline looming over them. We've heard about forced overtime. We've heard about, like you said, taking the freelance, not just because they're passionate about the topics that they get to do to cover, but because that's how they can afford to live rent, usually with a roommate, often with a Paizo employee as a roommate.
Yeah. There's a particular apartment complex nearby that has been dubbed the Paizo dorm because it's the cheapest one nearby, and most of them, at the time, it was most of them lived there with roommates that also worked at Paizo. Sorry for interruption.
Nope, that's what we're.
Yeah, gang. If we seem a little bit off our game this episode, it's because we are emotionally shook from all of this and our own conflicts, and the fact that many of the people at Paizo and people involved are people we consider close friends. And
then there's the ugly accusations of flat out harassment, bullying, derogatory comments, people being denied opportunities for their gender, their sexual orientation. With some very specific examples, and again, corroboration from multiple sources. And that is, that hit me the hardest. And that's why when we issued our statement, that's what we led with. And not to say that it doesn't deserve to be like in the same topic. It doesn't seem to be what people are mostly talking about, but man, that's just bad. That's just being a bad human being. And I don't like that at all.
Not at all. And I hate to say that, like, some of the worst of it was, but a lot of this was not surprising to hear. Paizo has over the years been the content that they've put out and that the employees of Paizo have managed to get put out has been some of the strongest force for good in the tabletop industry. As a leading industry folk, being able to put out things like, queer characters in the very first issue, like actively working to have, social advancement and cultural sensitivity, and always working to get better with the products they put out every single year, is something that they have done early and often, and it's often at the strong efforts of the designers and creatives and support staff, and in a lot of cases the warehouse staff and the customer service staff that have all chipped in from various different angles to make that possible. And so to hear things like this from a company that we have rallied for the exact opposite hurts.
And that's where kind of using Paizo as a blanket term, we need to kind of disambiguate that, because yes, Paizo has included a lot of socially advancing material over the years. And yes, Paizo has been accused of throwing around like anti-gay slurs in conversation at the office. And it's because Paizo is a lot of different people. It's tiers of people. And so when people were specifically talking about the gay paladin from Rise of the Rune Lords, people in the conversations were like, well, that was Wes Schneider. That was very specifically Wes Schneider made sure that got in there.
Well, also James Jacobs. Like Wes made sure to pitch to James, as a lot of that was James Jacobs bringing that. And
so anytime that you've seen cultural inclusion and social advancements, you can usually find the specific people, usually on the creative side, towards the bottom of the decision making, fighting, putting themselves on the line, and having to fight against upper management's questions and attitude towards that kind of content. And that is the content that really has defined Pathfinder for a lot of people. And so there's a reason that a lot of people in this case are very much on the side of the creatives. They're very much, it's why the call is for accountability, that it is just saying like, this is what we want. This is what Pathfinder is, and what Paizo has pushed for us, and what we trusted Paizo to give us as a customer base. And now we just want to make sure that the company reflects the values that its employees not only cherish but fight for.
Right. I mean, Owen once said that, is TTRPG going to become like basketball, was it basketball? I forget what it is. Well, the people making the games aren't the people making the money. It's the people playing the games that, the streamers that are going to make the money. And while that isn't something that I'm opposed to, of talented streamers getting paid, I don't like knowing that a good majority of the people working in the TTRPG industry are doing it on the verge of poverty wages and under bad conditions, and out constantly at fear that pushing for content that we all need might mean that it's the last piece of content they get to make.
And this is so soon after the release of Moang the Expanse, which covered like race in a way that has not been covered in Paizo products, even when they were at the height of being, patted on the back for their inclusion and their being forward thinking. And it's like, this was really like a new hurdle that they jumped over, and that they were climbing towards new levels of social awareness. And it's just like, it's such a mixed feeling about how I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, and it's although I like to say I'm weary. It's hard for me to be enthusiastic right now. I kind of like, I really want to play Pathfinder and Starfinder and engage with this community, especially after seeing a lot of the love and support that has surrounded the accountability movement, where I have seen movements like this go really ugly really fast. And whereas the message for this is clear, is that the employees at Paizo and the creatives at all levels, deserve to be treated with respect and fairly and safely and equally. And so we want we do not want a Paizo that is a dead company or Pathfinder to suffer or this community to take hits right now. We want the company to be healthy and to treat its people good. We want accountability.
Yeah, because we've seen at least 2 mass exoduses of staff in the 10 or so years that we've been covering Paizo as a company. That it really grew. They really spotlighted who the people are that are influential on the game and on the setting. And then, a chunk left when we lost Wes Schneider, and not lost, when he left the company. And then several people followed after him. And then there was the Crystal Exodus, where a lot of people left around that time as well. And it looks like we are on the verge of another one. And it feels like the community is the one that's coming together being like, no, like, we love these people that are working on this book. We want to continue to support them. We want to continue to support the content they're making.
Right.
Just, treat them with respect as professionals and as people.
When this is something we've spoken to a bit on the past, but especially in the early days of KD, a lot of how we wanted to run this podcast is to recognize that the people who make this product and these adventures and this world and these rules are amazing, talented people, brilliant people. And so when we brought them onto the show to interview them, the whole guise is we are going to treat our guests like rock stars, because they are. And that's how we view the creatives and people on the front line at Paizo as being rock stars in this industry and doing some of the best stuff. And I want there to be more of it. And every time that one of these issues come up, or I see somebody feeling that they have to leave the company, or I hear, a sad story over a drink at a convention from a former or current employee that is pushed to their wits' end, it just breaks my heart and it hurts all of us.
So now Numbat18 has a question about how do we establish in the greater gaming community acceptance of the need for higher priced products so that those who deserve it are paid properly, and will that lead to further economic divide in the player community? So here's the thing. Archives of Nethys exists. You can get the entire Pathfinder game for free, completely playable, completely legally. Then you can get PDFs, which it does require certain technological access to be able to use the PDFs at your game table, but it is still a much more affordable way to get these products than buying the physical print books. So even if the print books go up 20% in cover prices, it's still not completely locking someone out from gaining access to the rules. Archives of Nethys, even just having access to Path Builder, a free app that shows you how the rules work, and anytime you have a question about a specific rule, it links to Archives of Nethys. So there is absolutely a totally free version of the Pathfinder experience. And I'll call ourselves out that because we get preview copies of everything from Paizo, we may not be entirely in touch with the fan that has to buy every single product still. We were definitely that way for a long time, but at this point, we do get preview copies from everything we talk about. Even we get, sometimes we don't even have time to talk about all the products that we get preview copies for. So just putting that out there. I don't know if it's full disclosure or just calling ourselves out, but there is still, I do still believe that the Archives of Nethys and the fact that everything is available digitally, rules-wise, is a nice access point for people that can't afford the rulebooks.
And honestly, whether or not the products need to cost more than they do, and the complexities that are involved with all of that, and the current situation with COVID and shipping from China and games, and what many of the game designers are contemplating is about to become the gaming apocalypse, with a lot of the changes in a lot of these books might be becoming more expensive real soon for reasons that have nothing to do with this, or trying to raise compensation. So I want to hold from talking to that point until I can be much better informed. And because in a lot of ways that is a bit of a more complex and tangentially related issue than the core concern of just treating the employees with respect.
So Roll for Combat, Stephen is in chat saying that Paizo products are cheaper than Wizards of the Coast books, and Wizards of the Coast is about to raise all of their prices. So Paizo products are basically too cheap when compared to Wizards of the Coast. So I believe that's true. I actually have not bought a Wizards of the Coast product in a long time.
It is true.
It is true. But also,
Yep.
Paizo outputs a lot more. And so at the end of the year, if you bought everything for Pathfinder versus you bought everything for Dungeons and Dragons, you spent a lot more on Pathfinder.
As somebody who was buying everything from Paizo before they decided to put us on the review copies lists, I would have saved so much money buying Wizards products only because I would be buying so fewer product than I would. Honestly, I kind of felt bad for my 5e fan friends because I was like, they could at least give you a book a year. Just one a year is not too much to ask. and when 5e was like kind of slow with the player focused content, they were putting out lots of content for 5e, but not like we're used to getting like 2 or 3 player focused crunch hardbacks a year, and like they weren't even getting one. And so I was like, ooh, I hope y'all get more content.
Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with chat. So Paizo has issued some official statements, and they are mostly promises. There's not a whole lot of concrete plans that have been put out. And some of the things that have even been said, like one example is that it says that the statement by Jeff Alvarez, the CEO, I believe is his title. One of the things was that no one has ever been fired for any specific reason, but because Washington is an at-will, I believe it's called, an at-will work state.
Yeah,
companies don't actually need to say why they're firing somebody, so it's a completely hollow statement to say that they can't fire somebody for holding managers to task.
Yeah, it's a statement I don't really put a lot of weight behind, because like I live in an at-will state, and I've seen from my own dealings with how that things are handled in the at-will state, they don't need a reason, and often companies will not give a reason to protect them from future liability.
If people want to know more about this, the easiest way is to check the hashtag Paizo Accountability. Twitter seems to be where the majority of this conversation is going on. You will see takes from current Paizo staff, from Paizo freelancers, and fans. It is really a situation where it feels like a lot of people have come together to kind of like address their concerns with the company as a whole.
Right. And there are also several good guides out there. Mark Safter and Owen have put out some content like how to support the people we love at Paizo and the creatives in ways outside of directly supporting Paizo, if that is something that you're conflicted with right now. And and I know a lot of the employees and former employees and freelancers that are being affected by this. People have been pointing out like they do Patreons and they have an independent publishing label, and like there's lots of. I recommend getting to know the people who make the things you love and showing them some extra love right now, because everyone that is involved with this is super, super stressed out at the moment.
And if you didn't see Gen Con, any of those panels that you watch, you can see the stress in everyone's eyes.
Right.
Well, there's our segue, Perram. So, actually, I guess before we talk about Gen Con, we should talk about how we are going to be going forward and covering Paizo. Because it's like the more we say, hey, these products look awesome, the more likely Paizo is getting sales and then can afford to continue to do things with status quo.
Yeah, but we haven't had that conversation with ourselves yet.
Have we not?
No, we haven't. But right. But I think we're on the same page on a lot of it. So,
what we're going to look for opportunities to support other people in the community. I know there's one interview that we both got emailed about a couple of weeks ago that this would be an ideal time for that. It's not even third party, just a separate company that produces products that would be, and we know are of interest to Pathfinder fans. And that's just kind of going to be the spotlight for, as you know, for the future. There's a prominent freelancer who is getting a major credit coming up, and I'd like to have her on the show. We'll talk about that. But yeah, effectively, we are going to be doing what we can to continue to put out
Right.
no direction appropriate content, but also not just betray our own values.
Right. Also, this would be a great time if you're a third-party publisher listening right now and have a product that I might get super hype on, drop me an email.
All right. So
I've already super hyped your product, Stephen. It's awesome. Really. Also,
have you heard of Battle Zoo Bestiary, Perram?
Yeah, it's got a cool dragon book.
Yeah.
Also, like, a lot of us helped with this thing, so there's a disclosure there. But it's pretty awesome.
There was this thing called RPG Superstar. Maybe you missed
it. Okay, so, but oh yeah, so yeah, go check out Battle Zoo Bestiary. It's kind of awesome, and the things that Roll for Combat and the creatives, which include a lot of the people that we're worried about from Paizo, Stephen is stepping up and paying some of them to do great work right now on this project, and it's going to be some wonderful. I'm actually super hyped to play that adventure path, and hope somebody invites me to a game.
Stephen is saying that the next RPG Superstar starts next week. Did you know about that?
I did. I didn't know about the dates, but yeah, I didn't know that was ready to be talked about soon. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I've seen a logo.
Oh,
yeah. I'm going to be. I'm going to be. Logos.
I shouldn't be dismissive.
It's a secret, Stephen. Okay, wonderful. When this secret happens, I am one of the judges, so
you are.
I will disclose that. So.
We had a comment from Darren Caldemeyer asking about Pathfinder Infinite. So that was probably the biggest announcement from the keynote speech that Eric Mona released. Mm-hmm. And that is that there is a new licensing program called Pathfinder Infinite. Actually, there's two programs. There's Pathfinder Infinite and there's Starfinder Infinite. Mm-hmm. Perram, do you want to summarize what these two new licensing programs are?
Okay, so do you know about the DMs Guild?
I do, even though
it's like that.
As
it's
out
like
of
that.
The world of Dungeons and Dragons as I am, even I've heard of the DMs Guild.
Yeah, but imagine that with even less restrictions, because this thing has almost no restrictions, and I love it. They're partnering with One Bookshelf, which is Drive Through RPG's parent company, and they're going to create a portal site where Pathfinder and also Starfinder content is going to be allowed to live, and you can publish independently. And you might be saying like, hey, wait a minute, aren't you just talking about all this third-party publishers making content and selling it, often on DriveThruRPG, the most popular RPG website there is? Yes, but now you get to play with Pathfinder's IP. You get to make stories in Gallierian. You actually get to use some of Pathfinder's art in your products. You can reference the characters in the world. You can Aaron Shanks, marketing, who works in marketing at Paizo, was like, now that they've talked about Absalom having a bar listed for every district, I want somebody to make the gay bars of Absalom. And Vanessa Hoskins has announced a plan to do some fiction in the setting, young adult stories in fiction. She's contacted a co-author to work with. Unfortunately, I don't have that name handy. And she's in chat.
Helen Saver?
Mm-hmm. Helen Saver. This is the opportunity we might get. This has not been officially, but I'm officially calling for it. We can finally get Gallierian Almanac. Please, James, make the Gallierian Almanac. I want to buy it from you. I expect to see a lot of people doing this. I have heard from, it's not on record, but I have heard from at least one author who is very eager to revisit some of their fiction work. So it's not just going to be awesome third-party rules and adventures and stuff, which absolutely will be on this platform, but it means that we're going to be able to see all sorts of creative wonderfulness. And this is a fantastic opportunity, especially with the creative output that I have seen the Paizo fans make. I'm like, Paizo Fans United exists because of the creative awesomeness of this community that is willing to just throw themselves into this wonderful worlds that Paizo has created. And I super look forward to seeing what they can do with the reins pulled off. Some details. There's a higher than average cut going to be taken from sales. It's a 50-50 split this time. The creator is going to get 50% of the sale, and then Drive-Thru and Paizo will split the other 50%. That is high compared to most of these platforms, but not most of the platforms that give you access to the world and all the IP. This is the same as Judges Guild.
So now, also on that, that means that if you want an editor, if you want original, very specific art, it is up to the author to pay for that. That is coming out of your 50% budget.
Yeah, and there are some rules that you like. It's not anything goes. There are some rules like no, like political content's not going to be allowed. I imagine this mostly means real world political content. My Dan Quill fan fiction will not be allowed to exist in Gallierian. There is going to be a limit on explicit material or anything that is promoting illegal activities. It's a lot of common sense of things that, of course, a company wouldn't want their brand associated with.
It's also written in terms that it's like they could basically be like, no, we've decided this has crossed the line, so you can't point at another release and be like, but they also were political. It's like, well, we said don't be too political, and so we're saying yours is bad, but theirs is good.
Also, written into the license is that they are allowed to decide on a case-by-case basis, and if you want to, you can email them and get special permission to do anything if they agree with it.
Now, Vanessa Hoskins in chat. Hi, Vanessa. She is saying PG maximum rating. Yeah, that is a good guideline. There's also some specific things like child endangerment is not allowed. If you plan on writing, before you start writing, read over the license, get the specific things, make sure nothing that is like pivotal to what you want to write is banned or addressed.
See, Vichilia is asking for the mini romances of Glanville. Ooh. Oh, Glanville only has eyes in his heart for one man right now.
Yeah, right now. You're saying that he didn't get to be level 15.
The Adventures of Young Glanville. Oh, good Lord. So I intend to play in this playground.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Yeah.
No.
Really? That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know yet, but I want to play in this playground because of how much I love Gallierian. I have no specific thing to announce, but that's how excited I am for this program is, I'm gonna do something.
When I went from just doing work for third-party publishers to getting my first Paizo assignment, one of the things that kind of shocked me was how much freedom you lose when you get an assignment for a Paizo book. And like, it's something I've gotten used to, and the more credits I got with Paizo, the more creative freedom I got. But at the time, it was just like, I went from, these are all my ideas, and the publisher being like, great, we'll put that in the book, to this is the idea that you have to give to us from the publisher. And so this feels like you get the freedom of being like working with a third-party publisher, an independent publisher, and also the benefits of working for Paizo.
Mm-hmm. And I've had that experience too in a lot of ways. Like when you're working very strongly with a mainline thing that's going to be published, it's a lot like, I'm just the coloring book. I'm the dude with the crayons. I'm not like, the outline was completely set and all I had to do was fill in the details.
I could certainly work, like I was saying, you could expand on existing adventures and adventure paths too. So that is something that I always enjoyed from Legendary Games when they first launched. Their niche was that they were doing support for the adventure paths, and I can definitely see someone that has played through an adventure path and like had to improvise a section, and they were like, you know what, that section I improvised made that adventure path work, or just like someone who has more personal experience and has gone through an adventure path, has a different perspective than the people that are writing it, and it's all based on projection and theory and experience into how that should be written, but it's different.
Like, say, if somebody were to make the Book of the River Nations, the complete guide to kingdom building, and it would be a lot easier to find what that book was supposed to be for.
Right. Also, John Fraser released, that wasn't Legendary Games, but also a very good example.
Also, there's a lot of people that have done very good work converting adventure paths to different systems, and like say up, and basically that content is not something that can be monetized or compensated for, I can imagine somebody like, hey, I'm going to do all the work to update the stat blocks for, Legacy of Fire. And here's like, and there we go. Here, Legacy of Fire 2E patch.
That does remind me, there are some limitations in that if you release something for Pathfinder Infinite, you couldn't then release a 5e version of it through a third-party publisher. You couldn't take the same thing and release it again. Once it's part of Infinite, that is where that content exists. Mm-hmm. But also, you can actually do Pathfinder First Edition content with Pathfinder Infinite. That's part of the license, which that's a cool surprise. Darren Kaldemeyer, maybe finally Mark Seifter can release all 52 spirits for the First Edition medium from the playtest. Yeah, so the medium went from 52 to like a dozen spirits, right? Mm-hmm. I'm positive Mark has them written up somewhere. And that would be something that he could just turn around and wait, no, because he was probably already paid to write them.
Yeah those words already exist in Paizo's pocket.
Yeah,
but it could mean he could make 52 new spirits.
Yes, he already made 52 spirits. Perram, you want him to make 104 and only use 52 of them?
Mark can do it.
Yeah, Mark can do it. Lewis is in chat and saying he's looking forward to a KD Presents imprint, which Vanessa, all caps, is a very good idea. Dustin, OMG, yes. So since you are talking about maybe you want to play in this space, I know Vanessa is. Maybe that's a conversation that the network needs to have very soon while we're all in the planning phases.
Right. Oh my gosh, I could do an Otome. I wonder if I could publish my Pathfinder Otome novels.
What is it? Oh, wait, what? Do I
Dating games, visual novels.
Oh, okay. I guess I haven't gone through the license with a fine-tooth comb, but if it's around the same tone as Vanessa's, then sure. Mm-hmm. Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, sorry. A couple of people have asked how we think this will affect Wayfinder. And so that was Wayfinder's niche. That is one of the only ways that people can play in the Paizo IP playground while still having complete creative control of their ideas. I think there is still some prestige to Wayfinder that will at least carry it for at least a few more issues. But it really depends on how well Pathfinder Infinite lands. And also, you got to keep in mind, there are going to be hundreds or thousands of submissions to this pretty early on. And if people get super excited, they put it out there and then nothing ever comes of it, like they only get a couple of downloads, there's a good chance that they're going to be like, you know what, I liked the support and community that's around Wayfinder. Maybe I'm going to go back to that direction. Because people probably aren't doing this for the 50% cut. They're doing this for the opportunity to work with Paizo IP and for, the feedback and to get their ideas out there and share it with an audience, which is what Wayfinder does.
I can't say this for certain, but I can almost guarantee that Paizo's going to be looking at, like, the creative managers at Paizo are going to be looking at really successful authors on this platform and wondering if maybe they should be more successful.
Looking over chat, there's a lot of people that are backing up the idea of KD Presents. V wants to know if we want to sponsor her and cover art.
We've got some conversations to be had internally in the staff chats. We have nothing to announce right now.
No, because this is not something. This is an idea that came from Luis in chat. He sprung it on us, but it's definitely something we're going to look into.
Oh, so that wasn't the only thing and honestly, to me, this is the most exciting news to come from Gen Con's announcements because of how much this empowers the community and also provides opportunities for the staff at Paizo and the creatives that are at Paizo and the freelancers that already work on this to have even more freedom to do what they want and to play in this playground that we all want to play in. So, but that isn't the only thing that was announced. There was some little things like classes.
So that is a great segue, but Luis has such a good comment that I want to go back to it.
Oh,
People
no.
submitting to Wayfinder don't have to create a PDF. And it's true. If you're submitting to Wayfinder, you just need to be a writer-designer. Whereas if you are working with the Infinite licensing, you are a publisher. You are a self-publisher. You get some assets, but ultimately there is a lot on your shoulders that you have to do or pay for.
This is not easy. Being successful in any self-publishing endeavor is not going to be easy and will take effort, work, talent, and money. So I encourage everybody that wants to do this to get involved, but to not be unaware of what is involved. And it will be more work. If you've never done this work before, it is a lot more work than you think it is.
Yeah, you're going to have to start thinking about marketability. You're going to have to weigh like, oh, this is the one that I really want to be big, but maybe I should get a couple of practice ones under my belt. But I don't want my practice ones to ruin my reputation. So I'm going to make sure that I've got to come up with the one that's cheesy and easy and will have the most impact, and that can pay for my real idea that I want to launch with later on.
Yeah, I know. You're going to have this fun idea like this little collectible card game people can play online so that you can earn the money to publish Robo Rally.
All right, sometimes the first idea does land, maybe even bigger than you thought. All right, so you had masterfully segued into talking about some of the announcements. Let's talk about the AP, because that's the first one on our list. So we now know the adventure path that's coming out after Outlaws of Alkenstar, and it is the Bloodlords Adventure Path.
Oh, yes. So the Bloodlords Adventure Path is going to be the Geb Adventure Path, and it is it Geb or Nex? It's the Geb Nex conflict.
Geb.
Geb. Yes. And we have a list of authors for it. The first one is going to be called Zombie Feast, written by Mike Kimmel. Expect it in July. Any expected release dates that we say from now until further notice is just wishful thinking, gang. And even the best intentioned business right now cannot really guarantee a release date of anything at the moment. Graveclaw is going to be the second volume, written by Jason Tondro. Field of Maidens, written by Jenny Jarbaski, expected to release. Okay, expected to release in September. The Ghoul's Hunger by Leo Glass, expected to release in October. A Taste of Ashes, written by Brian Duckwitz, expected to release November. And Ghost King's Rage by Jessica Catalan in December. And this is also going to tie in very much with the Book of the Dead, which is one of the big hardcovers coming. And we learned a lot of information about Book of the Dead while they were talking about this, such as some of the new ancestries that we get to play as if we want to get our zombie on.
When I was listening to a lot of the Book of the Dead ancestries, I was just thinking of combos of summoner, two parts of the same person. Like, oh, skeleton, and he can summon his spirit. And the spirit's just like, this is what you're doing with my body now? It's like,
so we are going to get to be a ghoul, a skeleton, a zombie, and those are the ones I remember. And more than that. So a vampire was mentioned. So and more than that. And also, there's going to be a white necromancer archetype, which is a necromancer that focuses on fighting undead instead of using them for malicious world domination.
Yeah, and it should be reminded that this is not strictly a player book. It is also a GMing book. It'll have
a monster book.
Bestiary in the back. Yeah, it'll have a whole chunk of bestiary stuff, and it will have an adventure. And the adventure is not for the new ancestries. It is for people fighting the undead, from the way Jason explained it to us in our panel with him.
Yeah, and a lot of the book will focus on Geb, obviously, but we expect some Ustaloff funness as well, and of course Gravelands funness will also be in the book.
So something else that was announced is we have the authors and the titles for the Outlaws of Alkenstar. That is the adventure path that is coming out after the Viking one, the Frozen Princess. Hold on. Let's see who can find it first.
The Quest for the Frozen Flame.
Oh, man, you were way faster than me. So, Punks in a Powder Keg, we already knew was going to be written by our own Vanessa Hoskins. Then Cradle of Quartz is by Scott Young. And finally, The Smoking Gun by Cole Kronwitter. Not a name that I'm familiar with, but I do know Scott, and I, of course, know Vanessa. And I know that when we were talking about Guns and Gears initially, I said that the Gunslinger is one of the only classes that I really have no desire to play. And yet, this adventure path really tickles me. It's something that I could definitely see myself playing. And I really like the 3-volume adventure path format.
I want them to keep this pattern. 2 3-parters and a 6. Do that all, because sometimes I want me the epic 1 to 20 awesomeness, but sometimes I want something a little bit more bite-sized, and sometimes I want a standalone adventure. And the reason I like all of those is it's different levels of commitment. Also, sometimes I want to not have a single plot dominate everything about a character I'm playing or a campaign story I'm running, which the adventure paths, if you were playing Reign of Winter, nothing else that could possibly happen in your character's lives measures up to what happens in Reign of Winter. And your entire character's concept and everything about it will forever be defined by that time you got in a giant chicken house and went to save Anastasia.
So Outlaws of Alkenstar ties into Guns and Gears, which is the next Pathfinder role-playing game core rulebook, or hardcover rulebook that's coming out. We got a lot of information about Guns and Gears, and boy, did the designers really look like they had fun with this book.
Oh, yeah. And not only the designers, but our own Luis Loza got to do the automaton, which looks, we finally got to see a lot about the automaton at the convention, and that looks so fun.
Just to be clear,
very much looks like
a new ancestry. So
yes, a new ancestry.
Inventor gets an automaton little buddy, but you could just be the little buddy.
Yeah,
you can be your own little buddy.
You can, and like the automatons are like configurable. You can have 4 legs, you can have 6 arms, you can do cool things. You got a crossbow for a hand. This is you are robot person, and you get to be robot person. Also, they look super cool. They look like Tenno from Warframe, which is one of my favorite games ever, and I don't believe that's an accident.
I know nothing. I have no frame of reference for most of what you just said.
Okay. It's all fantastic, amazing stuff. If you haven't played the game Warframe on PC and most consoles, it is free. It's free to play, and it's not scummy on how it handles its monetization aspects, and it is amazingly fun. And you are a cyber ninja in space, and you get to act like the complete awesomeness that sounds like at ridiculous speeds. When you watch a skilled Warframe player, or you get to become a skilled Warframe player playing the game, you are darting through entire spaceships at the speed of a bullet, slicing down enemies and doing jump flip kicks, magic tricks, and summoning elemental blasts and going all the anime. And it's one of the most glorious times I have playing video games. And I want to do that with my automaton. I hope that I get the rules to do that with my automaton.
All right. Well, if you get to play as an automaton, what kind of class do you see slapping on that?
Ranger. I'm going to be an automaton ranger, dual wielder. And I'm going to...
Rangers were played out?
Rangers are maybe a little bit played out. But I'm going to be a ranger, and I'm going to get the psychic multi-class on top of it, so that I get to have cool psychic ranger powers and get my ninja on.
Yeah, so once robots become psychic, then the robot revolution is happening, and we are doomed.
Mm-hmm.
Once Alexa learns us better than we know ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I apologize to anyone that has that particular device that just perked up because I said her name.
This is why I changed mine to Echo.
Oh.
Which I just woke it up.
I've spent too long teaching my kids how to talk to that thing. I can't change its name now. What else can we talk about Guns and Gears? So Michael Sayer makes the Gunslinger. and there were some updates on how the class looks compared to the playtest version, but it seems like mostly the things you can look forward to the gunslinger is that this book is actually divided into 3 parts. One of them is just the book of guns, and it's got the gunslinger and it's got all the equipment that the gunslinger is going to need. And then there's the book of gears, and gears. The inventor was made by Mark Safter, and the gears that accompany it. So the inventions that either the inventor will be making or that other characters will want to use in the character. And then the third part of the book is the how guns and gears fit into Gallierian. And so it's the setting section of the book. But I actually really like the idea of dividing them up, because we're used to like, here's the 2 classes and then here's the other options, but like really focusing on, David Gray is saying he did the Alkenstar section. Oh, cool. Congratulations. That is going to be a major part of this book.
Yes. I'm looking forward to this book a lot more than I ever thought I would be. I love the gunslinger, but I am super hype for this book, even more ways than my love of the gunslinger would justify.
You love the gunslinger? I never got I guess I never knew one way or another how you felt about the gunslinger.
I love the gunslinger. It's just, well, first, like, it definitely, when the gunslinger started showing up, it really started to hit this Gallierian isn't the traditional fantasy world that everybody originally thought it was, and it really was this giant kitchen sink, pulpy, comic book-esque world that you got to play in. And the second Cowboys started showing up, I was just all about that.
One thing that I know that the reason that this exists is not a good thing. It was more of a bug than a feature, but the fact that the first edition Gunslinger targeted touch AC meant that GMs who wanted to challenge the Gunslinger players had to come up with high-level, tiny opponents. And so there were just these pixie assassin guilds showing up all over Gallierian and raiding these Gunslinger campaigns. And I doubt we're going to need to do that for second edition, but I'm going to miss all the pixie assassins that were just out for the Gunslingers.
Oh boy. There's no reason they need to not be in second edition. If you have some pixie assassins, especially if they might be Red Mantis based, I imagine they'll find a home.
You can make them as a playable character now because we've got the pixie ancestry.
Yeah, and you can make your pixie assassin Red Mantis ancestry character adventure assassin book on Pathfinder Infinite.
Yep, I'm thinking about that now.
Oh, and then the inventor, which is maybe the one that I'm actually more hyped for than the Gunslinger, even though I love me some Gunslinger.
Loved playing my Shark Folk Inventor in that one shot that Luis ran for us. It is such a fun class, even though I totally got it wrong, the mechanics, which is fine because those specific mechanics were being reviewed. Mark Seifter was talking about how people wanted the unpredictability to be an option, and that they wanted a little bit more of a reliable stuff from the inventions because like basically the inventor's version of focus powers were almost all or nothing. Like you could get a big explosive effect, but then you needed I believe it was a flat 17 to use the effect again, or to use anything with that particular trait. I forget what combustible was. That the trait? I think it was combustible. If you used a combustible option a second time in the same
unstable,
unstable, was that it? Maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're probably right. So a lot of the revisions for the inventor are based around how that trait works and how the gunslinger, no, not the gunslinger, the inventor's inventions, how reliable they are and how much they can push them to the limits.
Mm-hmm. It's also like a character class that is a classic fantasy archetype that absolutely needs to be in games. And even other attempts I've seen to make a class like this, like say the Artificer from 3.5, never really felt like it. Yeah, we've got Considering Warlock saying Da Vinci. Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring some Da Vinci. Let's bring some Tesla. Let's bring some really cool mad geniuses. I want to get my mad science on. I need my character to do it.
I also liked Mark Seifter was talking about how if you want Tesla coils in the game, now that we Pathfinders have canonically traveled to Earth, then yeah, you can just say that's one of the people that did the the adventure path you just mentioned, the Years in One.
Reign of Winter.
Reign of Winter. They just came back with some absolutely foreign technology. Uh-oh.
I also noticed that Lim, in the art they were using to promote the Tesla coil, was standing between two Tesla coils on stage. And with your track record, Lim, maybe pick a different hobby. Because my players met those Tesla coils. They shot gigantic
Tesla coils?
Yeah. They shot gigantic freaking lightning bolts at them. It wasn't fun. They didn't like them. They spent most of that adventure finding ways to blow them up.
Wow. They could have brought them back and been billionaires on Gallierian.
I think it seems like they did.
Oh, okay.
If I'm reading things right. Yeah. My players only. Nobody else's. Also, in that game, I had a gunslinger. How much do you think that he loved it when he picked up his first M1 Grand?
Is that a machine gun?
It's a World War. Yeah, it's a gun. It's a rifle.
Guns.
Repeatable rifle.
A repeating rifle. Okay, there we go. A lot. I bet it was a lot.
Yeah. They loved it.
Where are we going from here? Dark Archive?
Dark Archive! More classes!
Or as I call it, the Darkive.
I like it. All right, so Dark Archive. It is indeed based on the 8 stolen books from the Dark Archive faction from Pathfinder Society that will be addressed in the book. So this is very much tied in world with Gallierian stuff. So expect a good chunk of this book to be about how Gallierian handles these weird magical secrets and darkness and moody stuff. This is going to have some fun. If you loved playing with the Chilaxian and then the Dark Archive faction in Pathfinder Society, I bet you are going to have a grand old time with this book. It's also going to introduce 2 new player classes, one of which is the Psychic, which is a full spellcaster that is indeed just like the old occult caster Psychic from first edition. Also, they said the Mesmerist is being rolled into it. So, so Mesmerist not going to be left behind. It's just becoming part of the Psychic now.
Which, to be fair, one of the complaints about Occult Adventures, and there were very few, because that is a very good book, but it was that there was a lot of classes, and a lot of them cover similar space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Spiritualist and the... What was the other thing?
Was it the Occultist was the other one that was... No, the Occultist... No. There were 2 that dealt with objects. There were 2 that dealt with spirits.
Yeah. The Medium.
There was the Oh, yeah. The Medium, yes.
Yes, the Medium and the Spiritualist. Yeah. The Occultist was the one that was like occult magic. Here's the Occultist. It's not a spellcaster. That was a bit weird. The Occultist was cool, and the Occultist is not coming back, but is sort of the ideas that inspired the Occultist are being made to make the new class, the Thaumaturge, which is going to be a character class that is a martial character that focuses on being able to use their knowledge of arcane magic and secrets and occultism to be a better martial character. They mentioned that the 3 characters that inspired this character class were Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files, Van Helsing, and John Constantine, which I shout out to some Alex Agunas here. This would also be the class to play if you wanted to get your Dean Winchester on from Supernatural. So you are a fighter, amazing kick butt person, and you are going to do that fighting by channeling magic items and dark secrets and all these other things to use the dark powers weapons against them with extra punching.
You know what? You remember that shadow-based fighter archetype from the Planar Adventures? An archetype that I bring up a lot because I liked it. I feel like the Thaumaturge also covers that space. It feels like there's actually a lot of meat on this bone.
Yep, I kind of feel bad for that class because it's one of those classes like, here's a really awesome class and you're going to be super excited about it, but 2nd edition comes out in 3 months, so...
The Gloomblade, thank you, Louise.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Thaumaturge it really appeals to me. It feels like it's a cool, like it's going to have a lot of just toys to play with. and it's got such a rich theme. I can easily see how people would role play that character just by default, and then if you're going against the default, you've got the really interesting directions you can take a Thaumaturge character.
I bet we could make a good Belmont with it too, if you were a Castlevania fan.
Simon, one of Simon's sons.
No.
All right. But
wait, which one was the one that was also? Which one was the one that was Dracula reincarnated?
Alucard. It was just Dracula backwards.
No. Them too. The very last Circle of the Moon.
Oh, I didn't. I have not played a lot.
Oh, Harmony of Dissonance.
Simon Belmont.
Harmony of Dissonance.
Captain N.
Harmony of Dissonance. Your main character, Soma. There we go. Soma was like Phoenix. Was Dracula trying to make up for in becoming reincarnated and trying to like. It's cool. It's a really cool story. Love the character. I love Castlevania. I love that universe so much. It's one of the few times that I can forgive somebody for absolutely stealing some intellectual property, which they totally did. To the point that the cover of the first Castlevania was literally the cover of Ravenloft.
Oh yes. Yeah, I've seen the side-by-sides. Yeah. So the Thaumaturge has a lot more pop cultural references than I expected from the class when it was first pitched to us. But like, that seems to be when I could wrap my head around it. Just when all of these different ideas from pop culture that could be a Thaumaturge character started getting, brought up.
Yeah, and it's I love both of these classes concepts. They're also, it's worth noting, they're going to be a playtest for these classes. The playtest started on Monday.
I was going to say there's not going to be. There is now. It's happening.
Continuing until October 28th.
We miss Halloween. That feels
and
like a
mistake. Get those reports in. Play those characters. Get into some online play with those characters. Run them through their paces and report back, because that's the Magus, the Summoner, the Gunslinger, the Inventor. They all markedly improved from the playtest versions thanks to the playtest process. So yeah. Also, these are playtest classes, and some of these are some features of this they have mentioned on streams are intentionally broken, overpowered, underpowered, just wild, because they want to see how people react to the most extremes. And so this is not how they will appear in their final form. I have read through them. I'm not familiar enough with them because of everything else that's been going on, and haven't had the time to give them their due diligence to give a full review on what I think of them. But I will note that the Psychic is different from most spellcasters because they have less spells per day than any other spellcaster. They get one spell per day at first level, which makes me go all the way back to my AD&D days. It's like, oh man, my wizard, I have 4 hit points. I can do 1d4 plus 1 damage once a day. Boy, howdy. But the trade-off there is that they get super cantrips. All the cantrips that we know and love, they have the ability to spend focus points to quote-unquote amp them up. And that was really cool idea, which gives them basically a boost. And also the amps heighten. So when you heighten them and amp them, you get super versions of the cantrips that get rider effects and increased damage dice and all sorts of fun stuff.
So it does say the playtest is open till the 29th in the playtest document, but someone in chat said,
B in chat says focus points to amp up cantrips. Why didn't I think of that? Oh wait. Legendary Kineticist, folks. Great book.
Jay Franklin says that they said they would keep it open until November 1st. So
okay.
I don't know. I don't know which one is true, but somewhere between October 29th and November 1st are the dates right now. You want to talk about Mios?
Oh yes. So let's pull this up. Mios is the new Thaumaturge Iconic. It is being, I have lost where this is. Okay. It is being written by No Direction's own Avi Cool. Thank you, Avi.
I mean, he's a cast member on Valiant. I don't want to overstate their involvement on No Direction. Like, anyway, sorry. I was just like surprised you called them No Direction Zone.
Sorry, I just super proud of
yes,
Abby.
Proud to be involved with Avi, for sure.
Yeah. So they have written it. We know that as a young adult, driving through their coach at night on the streets of Ustalov, Milos was attacked by a creature and afflicted with a terrible curse. What a terrible night to have a curse. It is also the first non-binary iconic, and which is extra cool. And so I'm really hyped for it.
The background was written by Avi and also the art order. And we talked to Avi a lot in that interview at Gen Con about the direction they wanted to take to make sure that it doesn't fall into certain trappings of how non-binary characters are usually represented. So I recommend people check out. That was, man, I loved that Avi interview we did. We gushed about how much we love editors and Avi specifically.
Mm-hmm. And following that, we also learned about Thelion from a person at Paizo that we love, Linda Zayas Palmer.
Yeah, Linda.
It's Thelion is from Rahadum and is an artist, which is a super cool to have an artist iconic. A led religions forbidden. He believes that effort is the foundation of change and that each person has a duty to cultivate their own talents and use them to shape society for the better. I am all about that.
Yeah, I like it. And yeah, do we know much more about Dark Archive beyond the two classes?
Not really. We know that the not much.
Okay. Will there be an adventure?
I haven't heard about an adventure.
I'm just curious if it follows the Book of the Dead template or if every single new role-playing game hardcover will kind of break the mold of the last one and find the best way to represent itself.
Yeah, I do not have these answers for you.
So that was the big Pathfinder news. I know that...
there was also the one-shots that are coming to Pathfinder, including one that kind of has me confused, which is Headshot the Rot, which, if we've seen the cover, it kind of looks like a modern zombie apocalypse. Like, is this going to be in Gallierian? I'm not sure. Is Arcadia a little bit different than I expected it? Maybe.
It's like a 50s movie theater.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm curious. I have questions. And related to that, not specifically, was leaked. The Impossible Lands was leaked.
We didn't talk about any of the Lost Omens books.
Well, that's because it was a leak. It wasn't an announcement. And so
there was a book that we have doubted the existence of that now we have seen a photocopy, or not a photocopy, a photograph, a picture of what might not be a photoshopped image of Lost Omens, Absalom's City of Lost Omens. Is that really the title?
It's Absalom City of Lost Omens. It's Absalom City of Lost Omens.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's Lost Omens, Absalom City of Lost Omens.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
It has to be, right?
Yeah. It exists, or Eric Munn has gotten better at Photoshop than I gave him credit for.
Yeah. So this is a book that was supposed to be released over a year ago, I believe. I believe it was supposed to tie into the
It was going to be
Agents
one of the
Edgewatch.
Yeah, it was going to be really early release for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, especially like so many of the adventures were coming out all at once that tied into Absalom. Extinction Curse did, Agents of Edgewatch, Abomination Vaults. There was this Dead God's Hand adventure that's also late, and then this book was going to be the keystone that brought all this together, and it is super late. It's also humongous. It's 400 plus pages for this book, which is bigger than most support books. Will this be the biggest Lost Omens book? I think it might be.
Mind the Expanse was also really big, but I don't think it was 400 pages. I think it was 3 and a lot. Wait a second. This says it's a 296-page hardcover on the product description. That's probably an old estimate, right?
Yeah, this is from the panel, 400 plus pages. And also it's getting a Beatles and Grimm super version that I don't know the details of, but why not?
I like in chat descriptivist abbreviated this as PFLOAC, small o, LO.
We call this the book that doesn't exist till I'm holding it.
That was the Lost Omen all along.
Also, tangentially news related to the one shot. Thurston Hillman, who we love on the network and who has done fantastic things with the organized play from various different settings and has some fantastic podcast of his own out there that you should check out. Go watch Warhams. It's hilarious and amazing. And is being put in charge of the one shots from here on out. And that is a fantastic choice for that program. Random speculations include Magical Girl Mecha and was brought up as potentially something that might happen. We don't know how much that is likely to happen or just wishful thinking, but considering it's Thirsty who brought us the adventure path where we help Bugdad date a AI computer program by getting specials behind stage tickets to a J-pop concert, I guess hi.
Yay. Yeah, Thirsty is best when Thirsty is just given his own corner of the world to carve out and be creative in. And we can definitely expect some great things from this line under his supervision.
Oh, I don't even need to know what it is he's working on. If I hear Thirsty's involved, I'm on board.
Yep.
Wonderful person, wonderful GM when you get to play with him, wonderful player to play beside. And also incredible adventure writer.
Is that are we done already, Perram? I was worried we didn't have
done.
time for all of the outline, but
yeah, a lot of stuff got leaked early, like
yes.
the Outlaws of Alkenstar got leaked a little bit early. Lost Omens, oh gosh, the Knights of Lastwall got leaked early. And did you say you were involved in that book?
Yep. I wrote a couple of thousand words for it.
Okay. That has become my default way to ask somebody how involved they are in the book in a way that they can tell me without violating NDAs. How many words did you write for it?
I can't tell you what those words were, but I've used some of those words in this episode.
Yay. Also, that's like
how
4 pages? Usually about 4 pages?
I don't know. My sections are all over the place, so I couldn't tell you how many pages it was.
I usually estimate, on just written word, it's like 1,000 words a page is about an average, 800 to 1,000. But then when layout gets a hold of something, and pictures are added, you double it. So that's been my experience. But it's just random conjecture at this point.
Paizo knows how to estimate a word count, especially involving art. Like they.
Oh yeah. Paizo's. I'm just saying, like, how much the user should expect when somebody says, I wrote 10,000 words for this. It means it's probably about 20 pages worth of content.
Yeah. David the Gray is saying that usually about 750 pages per word, 750 words per page.
Yay! Thank you for that.
Are we going to wrap things up?
I think it's time we wrap things up.
We'll be right back with wrap-ups and shout-outs right after this.
Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups. Wrap-ups and shout-outs.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 2. 59 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, we like to bring your attention to some of the content from our own network and just some of the things going on in the community that we think you should be paying attention to. And I did not outline my shoutouts this time, Perram, so let me just scroll through the last couple of weeks of content while you give your first shoutout.
Okay, so my first shout out is going to be to a anime. So I need to put this in context. Every so often, I find a piece of art, and it's not always an anime. It's a book. It can be a piece of music. It can be a show I found. But every so often, I'll find a piece of art that absolutely meshes with my soul in a way that I can appreciate that the quality and message and artistry behind this transcends everything else that I deal with on a daily basis. And it is truly something special. And this anime ranks right up there with those glorious works, in which I am comparing it. The things that live in this club are things like American Gods by Neil Gaiman, the Charcoal Feather Federation, the Damon and Freedom TM novels, things like that. This is the level of love I have for, like, the first time I watched Next Generation Star Trek as a kid level of respect. And so these things do not come into my life often, and when they do, I need to shout them to the rafters. And for that, it is Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation is right now the anime for this. If you can, and this, I do not say this often, watch the English dub version of this, because they did a wonderful job of localizing it, and they went to the extra special mile. This is not an anime to watch with the young ones. It deals with adult topics, but in a more mature way than that typically would be said. And also, I've been told to go back and read the original web novel that this is based off of, which I will do once I finish watching the show, so I don't spoiler myself. And it is a modern times, we would call this an isekai, but this is really harkening back when we used to call these animes portal fantasies, which is basically, this is a deep dive into a very complex fantasy world that explores how the world works, how the people live in these worlds in the very complex ways. The characters in here are so believable and touching, and mistakes have consequences in Game of Thrones-esque kind of situations. And I like this in the way that it examines how a fantasy world would function using the main character as sort of an audience surrogate who is being introduced into it, and how a society would have to deal with things like, species and demons that, were controlled and now aren't controlled by horrible demonic personages, and how society would treat somebody who used to be a horrible demon in that society before they were unmind controlled, and all sorts of really complex issues. And I love it. It's worth seeing, but do not go into it lightly.
I have no questions. You covered every angle that I could possibly have about that. It is very high praise, and I know I do not spend much of my time looking at anime, but just because this seems like it is the umbrella, like it is the best example of everything you love about anime, and I should probably check it out just to see, just to get in your head a little bit, as much as for my own entertainment.
Right. I do warn you specifically, this does deal with some adult situations, and Scarlett should be nowhere near this.
All right, no problem. I appreciate the warning.
Yeah.
She actually she tried to watch the Kevin Smith He-Man reboot on Netflix and got kind of spooked by Skeletor. But then the new the kids focused one, Masters of the Universe, she started watching that and loved it. She went through the whole thing.
I haven't. Is that good?
So it's very kiddie, but if you've watched there's the How to Train Your Dragon Rescue Riders, and then there's the other How to Train Your Dragon series. It's a little bit in between there as far as tone goes, but they do some.
How's it compare to She-Ra?
It's its own beast, and it is definitely for a younger audience than She-Ra.
Okay,
it's fun. And Paisley says streaming anywhere.
Hulu.
I guess he's talking about what you're talking about.
It's
Hulu.
on Hulu for
Okay.
America, and it's one of those situations where it has broken itself into two parts. Part 1 has aired, so that is a complete arc, and they are going to finish the arc with part 2, which will begin airing soon.
Okay, so you haven't seen part 2 yet?
No, nobody
Okay,
has.
So nobody has. Okay. My shoutouts. We've got last week we had No Direction Beyond, episode 62, where they covered the Nanosite, and that is a class that is 100% a Starfinder original idea, and one that I know I've been talking about, like, if I played Starfinder a lot more lately, but that is definitely a class that I would check out. Just the fiddliness of it sounds really entertaining, and combined with Starfinder being, based on the 1E engine, it feels like that is a great system for that kind of fiddly class. And I love the theme. I love the concepts of what they can do with it. I know that V and Alex were talking about one of the swarm species being a nanosite, and each one having their own tiny little thing. I like to think of that swarm species as each one in their own tiny mech, making up how the nanosite works. Nanosite. But yeah, it just sounds like a fun class, and Alex and V did a really great job of explaining what's so great about it, and why it's, because Starfinder is not a game with a lot of classes, because those original 6 classes were really broad in theme, and so the additions really need to justify their existence. Nanosite's something that justifies its existence.
Right. And they're going to be talking about, I guess it's important for me to say this just because it's news and the network hasn't got to say it yet. And their next episode's not for 3 weeks. They will be fleshing it out, but the next class for Starfinder was announced.
What was it? You don't
I
want
have
to say? You don't remember?
Brain broke. Oh my gosh, V, save me!
So it's from the Magic book, right? The Magic the
Evolutionist.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Dustin, my other shout out is for Troubles in Otari Part 1, Episode 6. And it's really just a shout out to our No Direction Adventure series, Troubles in Otari. It's now come to a close, and it was run by Jason Keeley, who is a great GM and just a wonderful person. You and I were cast on it, so was Dustin, so was Alex Gunas, and so was Jessica Redekop, who is, I am proud to say, a member of the network. And this was my first opportunity to roleplay with her. And it really was just, there was a fun dynamic. So if people haven't checked it out yet, all 6 episodes are out, so the whole thing is complete. You can burn right through the whole thing. You can listen to it at your own leisure. I recommend it. It was just fun, and I really thought that the chemistry on it was super high.
Yeah, I had a blast. I would happily play with those players again, and do so frequently. Oh, there was a thing that you will love. Dark Archive. There's going to be time magic.
Ooh. All right.
I forgot about that. But yeah, I knew that you would love it specifically.
With time magic. Well, we flirted with time travel as a concept with the time traveler rare background in Secrets of Magic. And I guess that was just kind of a hint of things to come.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next.
I don't think any thieves were associated with time magic, though.
That's all right. Like, Thief was the one access point that I had it in 1E, the Time Thief from Super Genius Games. There are other ways you can bring time magic and time as a concept into a role-playing game than just thieving it. Although the Time Thief, still, a great class.
Right.
All right, next shout-out is to Battle Zubestre. It is on Kickstarter right now. The title specifically is 5e/PF2 Battle Zubestre Monster Hunting Pirates Dragons. Craft any gear from slain monsters, 100 plus new monsters, play a dragon, play 1 to 11 pirate adventure, monster hunting, blue mage, and more. I am glad that we did a whole episode on this, because this just feels like everything.
Oh yeah, I like it. It just seems like it was like the movie Blank Check, but with RPGs instead of a check, and you just get to do wildness. And I love that team is being able to just go wild.
So they are currently at almost 250,000 Canadian of their $25,000 goal. So this is funded. There's 9 days left to go. So if you want to get in on this, it's not about making sure it reaches its funding goal. It is about getting your hands on these products, because from what we've seen, we were given some preview PDFs of this of the main book. It's fun. It's well put together. Stephen really has a lot to be proud of. Mark as well. And miniatures were added, and I believe, I don't want to say it just in case it's not on there, but there is a whole lot to this Kickstarter, as the title and the subtitle explain. And I recommend that if you did not check out the episode, I want to say 3 episodes ago, you check that out and you check out the Kickstarter.
Roll for Combat says that Perram has a mini, and I do, and I'm holding one of those minis in my hand right now, but I don't know if I'm even allowed to show it, because it'd be up to Steven right now if I could show it on camera. But
so I had the same reaction as Raising Rune Lords. I thought it was a mini of you. Yee!
It's the pirate.
Yeah,
it's
the pirate. Person. I'm guessing you 3D printed that yourself, like he sent you the file?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Squawk says, Kitsune Warlock.
Oh. All right. Private Sanctum?
Well, I also want to just give a shout out to Paizo Accountability as well. So this is the hashtag that is going, and this is the best way to keep on top of the news. So I encourage everyone to follow the hashtag Paizo Accountability. Check in on it often to stay up to date. And while you're at it, check in on any Paizo employees you are close with to make sure that they're doing okay during all of this.
And if you right now, I this is where I would do the Patreon shout out, but right now, go support the Paizo creators and freelancers.
We're doing fine. Don't worry about us.
And but if you do want to join the Patreon just to hang out in our patron private sanctuary, our patrons do get to do that. It's the after show that we do after every single episode of No Direction. And that's where we'll be headed after we wrap this episode up. And we will talk about whatever you all ask us to talk about. That is a concept that scares me today compared to most days. But we hope to see many of you over there. And it has been my favorite part of doing the No Direction Network since we've rolled it out.
Nice. Well, we've already got a couple of people in Patrons Private Sanctum on the Patreon's backer on our Discord, so we should be over there in a couple of minutes. Can links to Paizo Patreons be put in the KD Discord? Asked Darren Caldemeyer.
Absolutely. Do it in the Share the News section. Yep.
Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.